Thank you for listening to the Tortoise and the Hare Financial Podcast. My name is Jim Leo. You are like most people, you have a to-do list running through your head. And from time to time, possibly after a close call on the freeway, you might think, I really have to get my affairs in order. I personally went through that when last year I unexpectedly required open heart surgery. Nobody wants to plan for their death, but then again, nobody plans for their family to be left in chaos either. One of the greatest gifts you can give your family is a well-prepared transition, and in this podcast, we'll provide you with a well-thought-out list for your loved ones to follow in their time of loss. As our good friend Ben Franklin would say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Before we get started, let's hear a word from my sponsor. If Anything Should Happen to Me is a story of Donna and Kate, but we can also replace the names with Jim and Carol because we went through the exact same situation last year when on a Tuesday morning right after May 2-4 weekend, I found out that I was going to be going in for open heart surgery to save my life. I didn't have a whole lot of time. I had to rush back and get home to let the kids know, finalize a bunch of things, and then get admitted back into the hospital that evening because my surgery was going to happen the following day at 12:30 in the afternoon. So with the If Anything Should Happen to Me story that I'm going to go through with you today, it's really about Don facing surgery and not knowing the outcome of that surgery, the impact, and he was really concerned that his wife, Kate, wouldn't know where to find all the important documentations and what to do if for whatever reason he didn't survive the surgery. Now, again, I repeat, in my situation, I'm fortunate for a few reasons. First and foremost, I am in the industry, so I do have a lot of the information already stored electronically at a centralized location. But there were some things that I didn't store, and Carol wouldn't have known where to find the information, so I kind of had to run through a list with her. But, she was also fortunate because if something were to happen to me, she could turn to John if she needed some financial guidance. She can turn to my partner Sonia in dealing with the will and finalizing the estate. She would be able to turn to my partner Dave on the accounting side to submit the final terminal return. She had a team of people that she can work with. She was able to go to Monique and ask for the location of where all the information was. Now, for me, I did go through the process once I got home. One of the first things I did after telling my kids what was about to happen was to go into my office and also pull all my insurance policies out, wills, powers of attorneys, and laid them on my desk so that way Carol knew exactly where to find that information. But where there was a gap, if there was a gap, it was again in the storage of passwords. Where that becomes very important is, again, you have bank accounts, online banking, social media accounts, everything is all password-based now, and you should keep that information in a safe, centralized location for your loved ones to have access to. So I'm now going through that process of storing that information because TVH Financial has launched a online electronic document vault that is available for our clients. So if you'd like some more information about that, you can reach out to me. But I'm going to go through the story of Don and Kate and what Don had written down in terms of what Kate should do if he didn't survive the surgery. You might have gone through this yourself as well, and I know there's more people who are dealing with this because of the COVID world we're currently dealing with. Sometimes we have time. In Don's case, he had the night before, so he was able to write down a list of everything that he can think of. I had about 8 hours that I was able to rush through and try to coordinate everything to prepare Carol for. But some people don't get that. If you haven't documented everything, if you haven't planned for it, if you haven't notified anybody what they should do in case, anything were to happen to you, that makes things challenging for executors, as an example, or if you're someone who survived but medically weren't able to make decisions for yourself, it becomes very difficult and challenging for your loved ones. So let's go through the different things that Don suggested Kate do if he didn't make it. We're going to start off with the beginning of the story, which is Don and Kate were nervously anticipating Don's upcoming life-saving surgery. Don was also concerned that, should he not survive, Kate might not know everything that needed to be done upon his death. The night before his surgery, he made this list for Kate of the things she should do if he didn't make it through the operation. Now, I'm not going to read the full letter itself, but I am going to go through some of these points. So if anything should happen, number 1, before you tell anyone that I didn't make it, clean out our safety deposit box and joint bank accounts. Everything is going to you anyhow, and when the bank finds out I'm dead, they're liable to close off all access to them until my will is probated. So one of the first things you should do with your spouse is open up your accounts in joint name. You don't necessarily have to run it as a joint account, but open up it in joint name so that way if something were to happen, the surviving spouse, again, would have access to that capital, because if you are relying on life insurance proceeds to be paid out, it does take, a couple of weeks or so to have that payout processed and deposited. So in the meantime, you should try to establish joint accounts so that way the survivor has access to the accounts for the cash. Now, simply putting things in joint name doesn't automatically avoid probate or the estate. Once upon a time, there was that thought, but if you leave your spouse as a joint owner, not a problem, because assets generally roll over to a surviving spouse. But for some people, they would put things like their homes in joint name with a child, or bank accounts or investments. And once upon a time, that was a strategy used to bypass the estate. It doesn't work anymore like that. About 3 years ago, the Liberal government made changes on how to treat joint accounts. So if you're set up that way and you're not aware of these changes, reach out to us and I can connect you with someone who can provide you some additional information there. The next thing Don suggested was to call the funeral director. And he says, but go there with somebody who won't be suckered into buying the fanciest coffin. Just remember, the money you spend on my funeral won't be available for the big wake I want you to throw for me. Now, I've always been a believer that funerals are meant for the living and not for the dead. And the reason why I say that is, once I'm gone, right? I don't care if I'm cremated. I don't care if I'm put in a coffin and buried. I don't really care what cemetery I put in. If I were to be buried, it doesn't really matter to me, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be there anyway. It's really for the survivors. If they need a location to go to, that's fine, whatever they decide. So whatever your wishes are, you should write that down, because you don't want that to be left for someone to guess and try to figure out. And sometimes I've seen that cause friction and fights in families, because you might have one sibling who believes that the individual should be cremated, the second one might not. If you write it down, they know the instructions. There is no fighting in that situation. Now, for me, again, the only thing that I did want was, if my family chose to put me in a coffin, I did not want it to be an open casket. I wanted it to be a closed casket with the casket surrounded with pictures of myself during the best of times, smiling with my loved ones. That's how I wanted people to remember me if I left this world. I've gone to funerals of people that I loved, and some of my last memories of them is seeing the corpse in the coffin, and I just didn't want to remember anyone that way. So that was the one thing that I did request and ask for my wife to do if they chose to put me in a coffin. So the bottom line is, whatever your wishes are, write them down. Number 3 is to gather up all my important papers. My life insurance, disability, general insurance, business agreements, banking information, notes receivable, payable, stock or bond certificates, real estate deeds, recent tax returns, marriage, birth and death certificates, automobile registration forms, and all recent contracts. Don't throw away anything that looks official, even if it appears to be terminated. People don't generally keep a lot of their documentation in a centralized location. And what I have found in the past, I have seen estates take about 12, 24, sometimes 36 months to settle, simply because the executor didn't know where everything was, didn't know what the deceased owned, what they had coming to them in terms of insurance payouts, and literally took that long because the executor was just waiting for mail to show up. Don't do that to your executor. Don't do that to your family. Centralize everything. Keep it all in one location. And again, if you'd like to have some form of electronic storage vault, we offer that to our clients now. So reach out to me and I can give you some more information on that. My passwords. This is something else that we were able to save in the electronic storage vault. The passwords, you don't want them laying around in your home. So if someone were to break in, they can find them. You want them in a location that's, if you can put it in a safe and someone has access to the safe, that's fine. But you do want to write them down and have them recorded. In Don's case, he indicated that the passwords were in the bottom left-hand drawer of his desk in a notebook, which should be a big help to you in managing the accounts. That's what he said to Kate. Now think about this. If he didn't share that with her, and she was trying to find that information, what she would have to do is go through every single book, piece of paper in his office, and eventually she would have come across those passwords, but who knows how long that would have taken. So once again, centralize, document, very important. Number 5, call our life insurance agent. He'll not only help you in collecting the money from my life insurance, but also in collecting the death benefits of my group insurance, company pension, CPP, as well as the death benefits from my segregated funds. So I usually encourage my clients that if there is a death that happens in the family, to reach out to us, and we'll assist them with the process. And we've done that as well in the past for our clients. Call our accountant. He'd be needed for the various tax returns that must be filed. Again, if you don't have an accountant that you work with and you need access to someone, I would refer you to my partner, Dave, who would be able to assist you with your accounting and also to process any terminal returns. Call our lawyer. She'll tell you what other stuff is needed and what must be done to settle my estate. She'll also tell you whether my will has to be probated, and probating is a process to prove that the will is valid, and there is a cost behind probating. Just so you know, as the province charges probate fees for everything passing through my will, I've tried to minimize them through joint ownership of most of our assets and naming beneficiaries where I could. So if you have accounts where you can name a beneficiary, do that, because in most cases that will bypass the estate. If you have GICs invested at the bank in a non-registered investment, that will bypass the estate, won't bypass the estate. That will flow through the estate. However, if you hold those same GICs through an insurance company's GIC on a non-registered basis, you can name beneficiaries on a non-registered contract through the insurance company, and those funds would then potentially qualify to bypass the estate and be paid directly to the beneficiaries. And once again, if you don't have a lawyer, reach out to us because I can refer you to my partner, Sonia. Now, where we've seen a benefit to some of our clients is the ones who have used our service through the estate transition service we offer. It is designed for executors. The reason why it's designed for executors, it actually provides a step-by-step process of all the things an executor needs to do to settle an estate. You partner that with working with our lawyer, Sonia, who can process the estate settlement pieces. That will actually speed up the process. The cost would be much lower, and there'd be more money in the hands of the beneficiaries by doing so. The other thing that the estate transition service offers is, again, a depository of information I don't know if I used the right word there, but basically a centralized location identifying all the assets, location of documentation, everything that's listed, the water bill account, tax bill account, whatever you want to put in there. That way the executor can take a look, can log in and see everything in a simplified dashboard and start the processing of canceling accounts, closing accounts, and so on and so forth. It also has templates in there, which would be used to, again, cancel the gas bill, cancel the phone company, all those things. So if it's something that you're interested, we're currently offering a special rate to our existing clients. So I'd be more than happy to share that information with you. Number 8, and we're almost near the end, call the other executors. You are my primary executrix, and you know who the other 2 are, so call them. Even though our lawyer will probably call them, it would be nice if they heard from you first. Number 9, call my business associates. Now, in my situation, I actually spoke with notified my business partners, John, Sonia, and David, before I went to the hospital. So that way they could prepare, the buy-sell agreements, the insurance policies, whatever, in case I wasn't able to make it. And the final part here is don't panic. I picked my executors and the above-mentioned professionals to assist and advise you in this situation. So let them do their jobs and help you, and don't rush into anything like selling the house or anything major for at least a year. With my life insurance and all the other benefits coming to you, you can take your time and make better decisions when the time is right. This is very important, actually. I have shared with clients who have gone through this situation that they should not make any major changes or decisions for at least a year, if they can financially do so. Some people don't buy enough coverages, enough life insurance. Some people don't have big enough retirement accounts or investment portfolios, and they're unfortunately put in a situation where they have to sell because they just can't afford to live with their living. Have insurance coverage. The life insurance will, if you have enough, will allow you to sit back and take time to make some of those big decisions. That's what I knew would happen with Carol and my kids. I let her know, this is how much you would receive if I don't make it tomorrow. And if that were to happen, you can stay in the house as long as you guys want to. It'll buy you time if you decide that you do want to sell and move elsewhere, but you don't have to cash anything out. You don't have to sell the house in order to downsize because financially you would be just fine based on the coverage. And that was very comforting. What I also did was I pulled out my critical illness insurance. Life insurance, I pulled that out in case I didn't make it. But the critical illness, I pulled that out in case I did. And obviously I did. And what the critical illness insurance allowed me to do was to recover without any stress, or at least financial stress. I didn't have to worry about liquidating investments that were intended for other things. I didn't have to worry about liquidating my retirement accounts. I didn't have to worry about adding any debt just so I can, survive for the 4 months minimum that I required to recover. I had enough money within 10 days of me submitting the claim. I had enough money in my account where I could literally just sit back because I knew everything was going to be taken care of financially. And all I had to worry about was my recovery. Worried about, being able to get up and walk for 5 minutes at a time, 4 days or 4 times a day, and kind of building that. Focus on minimizing and reducing the extreme amount of pain that I was in. I didn't have to worry about anything else but that. So if that's something that you would like to explore, again, you could reach out to us, and I'd be more than happy to help you there. And even bring in my associate, Jeff, who we brought on board earlier this year to help our clients specifically with their critical illness needs, disability insurance needs, and long-term care needs. So that is it. That's the story of Don and Kate. Now, Don, like myself, survived, thank God. Again, I'm very happy that I'm here today, that I survived. It was a very long recovery. It has forced me to change how I do certain things because, no one wakes up in the morning thinking they're going to be facing what I had faced. Unfortunately, in the COVID world we're dealing with right now, there are a lot of people who all of a sudden are being intubated, in a coma, passing away, and they never really took the time to put things in order just in case, because no one ever thought that they would get this virus that could be deadly and cause them to pass away. So I encourage you, again, organize, structure, centralize all your documentation. If you need help with that, reach out to me, financial@tvhgroup.ca, or you can call at 647-727-4668, or visit my website, tvhfinancial.ca. You can also see a list of services that we offer, but if you go into the new section, you can click the link to the podcast. You'll be able to view my other podcasts, but also there's a link there where if you do want to record a message or share experiences that you've personally dealt with, I may use them for future podcasts, but that is a way that you could send me a message directly as well. This was a pleasure. Thank you very much once again for listening. Take care and be safe.